Howdy, howdy. This is Mr. Potter. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to start talking about two quantities that we have in Java that makes it the language that it is. And it's the concept of inheritance and the concept of polymorphism. When I talk about inheritance, we have this concept where a class can inherit properties from another class. And when I talk about polymorphism, I talk about how a class can actually be another class. And so I want to start with this concept of an animal. So when I think of an animal, I think of an animal as being some type of creature, and that creature usually has some type of name to it, and that creature also has some type of noise to it. So what I've got is I've got a constructor up here that, default constructor gives it some name and some noise, which is rather boring here. And then I've got this overloaded constructor, which actually fills those variables. And I've got a set name, set noise, get name, and get noise, these accessors and modifiers, these mutators. We've seen these before in our other classes. But there's two things here that we haven't seen before. And the first thing is this public abstract class animal. Now, when I say this is an abstract class, this actually brings up this interesting point that I can't actually create a generic animal. I'm specifically saying that this has to be something that is extended. In other words, I have to come up with something else that's not just an animal, but it's some type of animal. And you've got a hint as to what's coming up here. I've got mammals, I've got dogs, and I've got cows. Those are all types of animals or subcategories of animals. Things that are animals plus. And then I also have one other thing down here, and this method header that has no method following it. I've got public abstract string speak semicolon. And of course you're saying, whoa, I thought we weren't supposed to start method headers with a semicolon. And what I'm saying is look, if you're going to create an animal object, that animal needs to speak in some way, shape, form. I don't care how it speaks, but it needs to speak. So I've got this animal class. This is an abstract class, which means I can declare a variable of this type, but I can't actually call on these constructors. And you're saying, well, if I can't call on these constructors, then why even have the constructors? And this word right here is the key word, private. Remember that we declared our variables to be private because we wanted them to be encapsulated, so that only this class could modify them. Well, if I try and say that something is an animal, only animals can change these things. So if I go over here to my mammal, let's go ahead and take a look at this mammal. This is another abstract class, but notice that it says it extends animal. It's kind of like an animal plus. So what I've got here is I'm trying to say, public mammal and name is fuzzball and noise is growl. So if I have just some general mammal, I know mammals have hair, so I'm going to call it fuzzball. And I know that mammals, in general, tend to vocalize by growling. And then I've got an overloaded constructor here. And of course, one thing that mammals do, because they have hair, is they shed. And so I've got this accessor is shedding. Now, if I try and compile this, I'm going to notice a couple of errors here. So let's go down here and see what these errors are. It says error, name has private access in an animal. I can't access name because name is private in this class. So I'm going to have to go through some other way. There's one way that I can do it, is I can actually use the set name and set noise methods. So I could go into this constructor and say, instead of saying name gets fuzzball, I could just say set name to fuzzball. And instead of saying set noise to growl, instead of saying noise gets growl, I could just say set noise to growl. And that's one way that I can do this, because remember that these mutators, set name and set noise, they are public in the animal class. So I can actually use them. But there's another thing that Java has built in. Whenever we extend a class, we can use the constructor of the class. Now the question was, why did I create constructors if I could never actually create an animal object? And that's because I can call on this and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. Instead, what I'm going to do is call on the previous constructor. And the command for that is super. Notice super changes color. So this is a reserved word in Java. But what I'm doing is I'm basically saying, hey, if you want to create a mammal, look at how you create the next class up. Making a mammal is exactly the same as making an animal. So I'm going to call on the super constructor for the parameter new name, which comes first, and new noise, which comes next. And now I should be able to compile this, because now all of these are public methods. Notice that set name and set noise, those were public mutators that we had down here. And this constructor, this two parameter constructor, this was actually a public constructor that we had here. So now my animal class compiles without issue. And my mammal class compiles without issue. So now I'm going to go to these two aspects of mammals. Again, I'm not going to look at, go in nature and say, hey, look at that mammal over there, or hey, look at that animal over there. I'm going to say, look at that dog. Now, I have a problem here with dog. If I try and compile this, I'm going to get all sorts of errors from these constructors. The exact same errors that we had before. That's why I have this set name and set noise, because I'm not going to be able to just call on, setting name to Fido and setting noise to Woof. So I can do this. I can just basically call on the default constructor of the previous one. I can say, super, and then set name to new Fido, because that's a nice doggy name, and set noise to bark or woof. Let's do woof. But again, instead of just using these accessors, I could also just, instead of using these mutators, I could just call on the overloaded constructor for mammal. How do I create a mammal? Well, I just call on super, and I pass it new name and new noise. And so this should compile fine. Now, of course, same thing's going to happen with my cow. So I want to, my default cow's going to be called Bessie, and she's going to move. So we're going to go ahead and call super with Bessie and move. And I'm going to do the same thing with my overloaded constructor that I did before. I'm going to say super for whatever new name is and whatever my new noise is. And what I've done is, in addition to speak, because I've had to tell a mammal, and I haven't had to tell a mammal how to do it, so it still is abstract. But I had to tell a dog how to speak. And what I do to tell the dog how to speak is I just say, hey, what was your noise? And I return that noise. And same thing with a cow, because the way a cow speaks is it moves. But each of these animals has a special method that goes along with it. And I'll talk about the special method in just a bit. What can I do with a cow? I can milk a cow. And so for this public string milk, I'm using milk as a verb, return get name plus gave 2 pints of fresh milk. So I could say Bessie gave 2 pints of fresh milk. have a similar method over here for my dog. I've got fetch, so I can say return get name, so return Fido, got the stick. So what I want to do now is I want to go to this barnyard main, and I want to talk about some things that we've got here. Notice that I cannot create an animal and I cannot create a mammal. I'm going to go ahead and comment this stuff out, everything afterwards. We're going to see what happens here. But if I try and compile this, notice it says animal is abstract, cannot be instantiated. Mammal is abstract, cannot be instantiated. I cannot call on the animal or mammal constructors because animal and mammal are both abstract. But I can do this. Let me go ahead and comment this line out and comment this line out. I'm going to... A dog is an animal. A dog extends animal because it extends mammal. And so I can say, let A2 be a special type of dog, and let A3 be a special type of cow, because dogs and cows are animals. And if I compile these two lines, it has no problem with that. Similarly, dogs and cows are both mammals. So if I compile these two lines in addition, no problem. And of course, a dog is a dog, and a cow is a cow. So I can call on these constructors. And so this is that aspect of polymorphism that we're talking about. What is a dog? Well, a dog is a member of the dog class. But because dog extends mammal, a dog is also a member of the mammal class. And because a dog is a mammal and a mammal extends animal, then a dog is also an animal. So what I've got is I've got A2 is a dog, and M2 is a dog, and D1 is a dog. And similarly, A3, M3, and C1 are all cows. What makes them different is this. There is a dog object in this box, but this box is an animal box. So this box A2 can only do animal things. A2 can only do animal things. So what are some animal things? What can an animal do? Well, an animal can speak. So I can system.out.println A2, and it should speak. Well, A2 dot speak. would make the animal speak. But I can't call on A2 dot shed. And the reason I can't do that is because A2 is an animal. Animals don't shed. Mammals shed. Animals don't. Similarly, I can't say A2 dot fetch. All of these are going to give me issues if I try and compile them. Notice that it says, here I'm saying A2 dot shed cannot find symbol. Animals can't shed. There is no shed method here. Shed belongs to mammal, but I'm asking an animal to do something. And animals can only do animal things. Animals can, well, according to this, an animal can have set name and set noise, get name and get noise, and it can speak. That's what an animal can do. A mammal can do all of those public methods, but it can also shed. So the thing is, even though A2.shed causes a problem, if I try and do system dot out dot print line m2 dot shed and acknowledge that, you know what, that's just not going to happen. If I try and compile this, I'll actually have one fewer error because mammals can shed, animals can't. Notice that the only error I have now is that I'm trying to get an animal to fetch, and animals can't fetch. But even if I change that to a mammal, even if I make this m2 dot fetch, that's still going to be an issue because the only things that can fetch are dog objects. And even though this contains a dog object, it's not a dog variable. M2 is not a dog variable. A2 is not a dog variable. D1 is the only dog variable that we have here. So I have to make this D1, excuse me. I have to make this D1 dot fetch. And if I compile that, that's going to work fine. Similarly, if I want to talk about my cows, I can make a cow speak. So system dot out dot print line A3 dot speak. And animals can't shed, but cows can shed, mammals can shed. So I can say M3 dot shed, and animals can't milk. Mammals can't be milked, but cows can be milked. So I can system dot out dot print line C1 dot milk. And so these methods will work. I can't use A3 in all of them. And we're not responding. So if I want to deal with a cow, let's go ahead and put this cow stuff back in because it got lost. So we had system dot out dot print line A3 dot speak and system dot out dot print line. Remember, animals can't shed, but mammals can shed. And similarly, cows can milk, not animals, not mammals, but cows can milk. So let's go ahead and save this and compile this, make sure it works fine. So compiling, no issues, and if we run this, we're going to get some behaviors that we expect. So let's take a look at what we got here. Remember that we're using the default constructors here. So A2 is an animal, what we called on the dog constructor. Remember, our default dog was a dog named Fido that woofed. So when I do A2.speak, what does dog say? Dog says woof. When I do M2.shed, remember that M2 is calling on get names, so the name is Fido, and Fido is shedding, and then Fido got the stick. For A3.speak, we're calling on the A3 default constructor, which is cow. And remember that our cow is a cow named Bessie that moves. And cows can speak, animals can speak, mammals can speak. All of them can speak, but only mammals and cows can shed. So there's Bessie is shedding, and then I've got C1.milk. Bessie gave 2 pints of fresh milk. So what I want to do is I want to kind of extend this. I want to talk a little bit more about this with some similar categories. So I want to run some similar stuff here. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it bird. So we're going to create a bird. A bird is an animal. It's going to extend animal. but we're not going to have generic birds. We're going to create two different types of birds. One of the types of birds we're going to have is a sparrow, and the other type of bird we're going to have is a duck. So I'm going to say public abstract, because I don't want to be able to create a bird object. I just want to declare bird variables. So public abstract class bird. And this is going to extend animal. So what does a bird need? I need to be able to create a generic bird. So let's go ahead and do public class bird. Actually, just a public bird. This would be our default constructor. And so we're going to call on super, and then we're going to set name to Tweety and set noise to, how about tweet? And so there is our generic bird. I can do a overloaded bird with a string name. Actually, let's call this new name and a string new noise, and this will call on super, the previous constructor, the constructor for animal, with the new name as its name and the new noise as its noise. And so remember that what we had for the mammal is we had this shed method, and basically said blank is shedding. Birds don't shed, but what birds do is they fly. And so I can say return get name plus is soaring above the clouds. So this will allow me to have a bird that flies. Now keep in mind, I cannot actually call on these constructors, but I need them in order to access the private data that only animal can touch. Only animal can deal with this. Now, and of course, the way I can do this is through public methods. So I can use the public set name and the public set noise, or I could call on the super constructor to take care of that for me. So let's go ahead and compile this, make sure it works fine, and it appears to work well. So we're going to go ahead and get back. We're going to file, new file, and we're going to create a new Sparrow class. So public class Sparrow. And I want to be able to actually create Sparrow objects. So I'm not going to have it be abstract. So I'm going to have a constructor for my Sparrow. So public Sparrow. And I'm, because this is the default constructor, I'm going to call on super. And then I'm going to go ahead and do set name. What's a good Sparrow name? Sporty. And set noise to warble, I guess. Just for something. What sound do sparrows make? So public Sparrow with a string new name and a string new noise, and we're going to go ahead and call on the super constructor, the overloaded super constructor with my new name parameter and my new noise parameter. Now, I need to speak. That's one of the things that animals have to do. And if I don't create a speak method, then I'm going to get an error. Let me just show you what happens if I try and compile this. I'm going to get an error here. And it's going to say, okay, let's see, error cannot find symbol. Oh, I need to make sure that I extend bird. So now it knows how to do the super constructors for those. But I still have one other. It says Sparrow is not abstract and does not override abstract methods speak in animal. So I have to have a speak, otherwise I'm not an animal. Remember that all birds are animals. Remember that bird extends the animal class, so it has to have everything the animal has, and an animal's expecting a speak method. So how does a sparrow speak? Well, a sparrow just says it's noise. So public string speak, and it's going to return get noise. But there's something else I want to do that's going to make a sparrow, and that is I want a sparrow to sing. And what we're going to do is we're going to return get noise plus a space and get noise and a space and get noise. So in other words, the sparrow is going to sing its note three times. That's how it's going to sing. now that I'm extending bird and I've overwritten this speak method, then it should be good to go. It should compile fine. So I want to do one more of these classes. I'm going to create a duck. So let's not create, it's not a project. File, new file. We're going to go ahead and call this duck. So public class duck extends bird. And we're going to default constructor, calling on super, and then we're going to set name to Daffy, and set noise to quack. And that's my default duck. And then I have my overloaded duck with a string new name and a string new noise. And so we're going to call on super, but we're going to call on the overloaded constructor with new name as the first parameter and new noise as the second parameter. Now, what makes a duck an animal? It has to speak. So public string speak, and we're just going to return get noise. And we want something that's going to make our duck original. Let's say swim, because ducks swim. So I could do public string swim. And in order for a duck to swim, we'll just return get name swam across the lake. So that should be fine. We've extended bird. We've called on the default and the overloaded superconstructor. We've overwritten the speak method that we had to do because it's an abstract class. And we've got an extra method for our duckling. What was wrong here? What was the mistake? I can't spell string. That's the problem. Excellent. All right, so that should work fine. So we're going to go back to our barnyard maiden and add some other things down here. So I can do animal A4 gets new sparrow with no problem. Animal A5 gets new duck. I can even say bird B1 gets new sparrow, and bird B2 gets new duck. All of those are fine because I'm calling on the constructors of the classes that are not abstract. I'm calling on the constructor of Sparrow and the constructor of duck. Those were not abstract classes. Bird is an abstract class, so I cannot actually create a bird object. I can't say bird B3 gets new bird. The computer's going to have a hissy fit when I do that. It says cannot be instantialized, and so it's still running the old class. And I'm going to run into the same issue when I try and create an animal as before. But what I can do is I can also say Sparrow S1 gets new Sparrow, and duck D1 gets new duck. No problems with any of those. Just so all of that should compile fine. Oh yeah, I can't call it D1. So let's call it DD1. And D2 sounds good. So that should compile. I couldn't call it D1 because D1 is already a dog name. Now, because this is set up this way, keep in mind sparrows can sing, so I can system.out.println s1.sing. And that'll compile with no issue. But if I try and change this to B1, B1 contains a sparrow object, but B1 is a bird. Birds don't have access to the sing method, and so B1 can't sing. It has no idea how to sing. Similarly, A4 contains a sparrow object, but A4 is an animal, and animals can't sing. Only birds can. So I have to leave this as S1. Keep in mind that birds can fly, so I can system out print line. I could do S1.fly, and I could system.out.print line B1.fly. Ooh, too many parentheses. And if I compile that, that works fine. But if I try and get A4 in here and tell A4 to fly, that's going to be an issue. So the thing is, B1 can fly, S1 can fly, D2 can fly as well, because it is a duck. And remember that the ducks do have the ability to fly. Ducks can also swim, so I can system.out.println D2 dot swim. And because these are all animals, they can perform the animal stuff. So system dot out dot print line s1 dot speak, that'll work fine, and system dot out dot print line d2 dot speak. Because these are birds and animals, on top of being either a sparrow or duck respectively, this will work fine. As a matter of fact, if I try and run this, it should work fine. So I'm telling my bird to sing, and there's warble, warble, warble. I'm telling the S1 to fly, so Sporty is soaring above the crowds. So I'm telling D2 to fly, so my duck is flying across. And of course, my duck is swimming across the lake. And of course, I'm telling S1 and S2 to speak, and I get warble and quack respectively. What makes this effective is that I could create an array list of animals, and because dogs and cows and ducks and sparrows are all animals, all of those could be put into this. And we've also seen in the past how we have the instance of command, which allows us to see if something is an instance of a particular type. So I could check instance of to see if, hey, maybe this is a duck. Maybe this is a cow. So I can try and cast to use the methods. And we'll talk more about how to do that in tomorrow's video. So once again, this is Mr. Potter. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.